Now, let's start with a mum saying she would not take her kids to a library if it did not have LGBTQIA plus books. And she also claims to have a 10-year-old pansexual.
And I also am a mother of a 10-year-old pansexual who came out to me this year and was incredibly grateful for the books that you had available. I would not be coming to this library if you had not approved those books and made them available for my family.
Now, the definition of pansexuality is, and I'll read this directly, is a pansexuality is sexual, romantic or emotional attraction towards people regardless of their sex or gender identity. Pansexual people may refer to themselves as gender blind, asserting that gender and sex are not determining factors in their romantic or sexual attraction to others. Sounds a lot like bisexuality to me, but, you know, that's so 1995. Everyone's into pansexuality these days. But I ask you, Soph, what 10-year-old identifies as a pansexual, that they have romantic and sexual interest of people of all gender identities? And how can this happen without an adult pumping this nonsense through their head?
It's really concerning, Rita. I just think back to when I was 10 years old, and well, I can speak from my own experience. You don't think about those things. You're not told these certain things. This is your sexuality. This is who you're attracted to. Now it's being enforced on children. Kids, some parents are brainwashing their kids, or saying if you're a boy and you want to dress as a girl, or I mean, can't they just be who they are and figure this out for themselves, rather than having parents like this try and make a stance? And I think that library would be happy if that mother wasn't going there.
Oh, well, I mean, there was a quote from Blair White, who's a trans woman herself, and she said, you know, when it comes to these children, I'm paraphrasing here, having a pansexual 10-year-old would be like having a vegan cat. We know who's really making the lifestyle decisions. It's the parent, it is not the poor child. Now, let's hear from the Biden administration's Dr. Rachel Levine. And I think this is possibly this year's #1 nomination for the biggest example of gaslighting ever. Have a look.
I have considered it an honor to be a doctor. I believe in our role as healers. I believe in our role as truth tellers. And the truth that we need to confront now is that medicine and science are being politically perverted around this country that destroys human lives. And we have reached a tipping point for the role in medicine and civic life, for the health and well-being of LGBTQI plus youth and other Americans. Those who attack our community are driven by an agenda of politics.
Yeah, forget about 2023. That's gaslighting, all-time, top 10. Incredible. Yes, the medical fraternity is being hijacked, but by the trans activists, not by those saying, wait a second, maybe we shouldn't be doing irreversible treatments to teenagers. Maybe we should wait until they're adults who can actually submit to these decisions. Incredible. And what I really find upsetting about that is, in a recent interview, Rachel talked about how grateful they were that they didn't transition earlier, because then they wouldn't have had their children, and their children are so precious to them. So why would you advocate for policies that see these confused young kids undergo treatments that do often leave them sterile?
It's a very sad state of affairs, Rita, and that's right. If they undergo these treatments at a young age, they may live to regret it later when they're older. So it raises a lot of issues, and we've heard many stories of children who have undergone these transitions and then later regret it in life and want to revert back to what they originally were.
Absolutely. Now let's hear from White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, who is really setting the bar low. Listen to her explain why concerns about Joe Biden's cognitive decline are wrong because, and I quote, He has had one of the most historical presidency in his first 2 years than any other president. Yeah, that makes sense.
He was State of the Union. I believe he spent 90 minutes speaking to congressional members in front of him, to the American people. After that, he spent an hour shaking hands and saying hello and greeting the congressional members and their guests. And this is a president that works day in and day out, in a grueling fashion, with a grueling schedule, and delivers. And let's not forget, it is interesting that we get this question about this president, who has had one of the most historical presidency in his first 2 years than any other president, almost any other president.
What? Yeah, I don't know. The bar is being set very low. We're supposed to be impressed that, he shook some hands and did a speech in front of people. Like, that's supposed to.
Rita, I'm like you. I'm almost lost for words. Yeah, what are we saying here? The fact that she's having to defend him like this says it all. He's on borrowed time.
He is, but I tell you, he does not have too many challenges. There really are struggling for credible challenges. It is a
We can blame the media for a lot of this. They don't take him to task. They're supporters of him.
And they don't take most Democrats to task. That's why the talent pool is so shallow, because they're just not tested. Now, here is a woman calling out lefty lunacy and the danger it poses. Yunomi Park escaped from North Korea and the evil communist regime there. She says that the leftist woke ideology in the West, particularly in American education, is frighteningly similar to what she fled.
It's crazy to even ask a question like this, but if we do not change course, could America be going down the path of North Korea?
Absolutely, without a question. The things that I was learning at Columbia University really shocked me, because it was the exact same thing that my North Korean teachers were brainwashing me in the classroom. In American, at Columbia University, they were literally saying that all the problems that we have is because of capitalism, because of white men. And the solution for all these problems is a communist revolution.
Oh, I love it when we've got people who've experienced real communism, the communism all these Gen Zs and millennials pine for, and then they get lectured to by these privileged white kids typically, who tell them, no, you don't know real oppression. It really is an eye-opener.
It is, Rita, and I love how they always single out white men like they're some awful kind of species. I think the whole thing's really quite ridiculous.
Oh, it is ridiculous, and it is often the most privileged class who push this. I don't think it's coming from, members of the Asian community. I am generalising here, but, we see what the activists are like. Now, another example of lefties losing it, a school district, and this is not an isolated case, another school district has eliminated honours classes in the name of racial equity. The Wall Street Journal reports that parents are irate and want the school to reinstate honour classes for English and other subjects because, they eliminated them on the grounds that they didn't enrol enough Black and Latino students. Again, so this is, in a lot of ways, punishing Asian students, because we know they are disproportionately impacted when it comes to getting those marks. We've seen them discriminated against getting into some of those Ivy League colleges where they can have amazing scores, they can have all sorts of extracurricular activities, but they're still not admitted because they have racial equity guidelines to meet.
Rita, where does this stop? It's just going through education systems all around the world. Why can't we leave the education systems alone rather than trying to meet these actual measures and split everything up based on race or gender or so forth? This is just another example of that.
And it is so regressive. It's punishing excellence, it's punishing ambition and hard work. And this is what we keep hearing about, equity, equity, equity. And when you hear equity, red flags should be going up everywhere. What we want is equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome, because that's actually not possible unless you enforce it, and that's what we have there. Now, let's have more examples of lefties losing it. I'm not sure how these two vote, but I can take a guess.
Moose is an island boy. Moose is an island boy. Moose is an island boy because he loves his penguin. Moose is his penguin and his penguin is him. His penguin. Pudgy penguins are island boys and Moose penguin. He loves his penguin. Man, he loves it.
You know, give it a chance. If you just keep listening to it, it has a vibe, yes?
No, Rita, no. Where on earth do you find these things?
Oh, that is a good question. Where do I find it indeed? Now, I think you've got some breaking news for us, local breaking news. The seat of Aston, we've got a by-election coming up there sometime after Easter. And the Liberal Party have been very adamant that they must pick a woman. We've had everyone from Peter Dutton down saying it has to be a female candidate. And we had 3, I think, capable women put up their hand. But it seems like the members aren't going to get a vote in this. It's the committees.
Yeah, I just saw on Twitter there was an announcement the admin committee is going to decide. They need to fast track this process because the Labor candidate has been selected and the Liberal Party's well behind, so they need to get going. But Rita, again, why?
I'm sorry, I don't accept that, because surely you can fast track the process and still give the membership an opportunity to participate.
Well, you would think that would be the case, but that doesn't appear to be what they're doing.
Doing this in the most extraordinary of circumstances, overruling.
That's right.
I wonder how this is going to be received.
Exactly, Rita. And again, why does the Liberal Party have to push this? We must have a woman. I'm not concerned about the person's genitalia. I'm concerned about their ability and whether they'll be a good representative of that electorate. But again, the Liberal Party is trying to be like Labor, and they're trying to say, well, they have been saying we need a woman.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think it really detracts from the achievements of these women, because you do have some very capable candidates. Rashina Campbell, who's a City of Melbourne councillor, she's a barrister. She's selected. It's because she's the best person for the job, not because she's ticking boxes. I think it really is quite insulting to women. You either have a quota system like Labor or you pick the best candidate and you don't dictate these sort of terms. Now, before I let you go, Don Lemon, who's another lefty who regularly loses it, he upset everybody by saying Nikki Haley at 51 was past her prime, because apparently women are in their prime in their 20s and 30s.
Lovely.
Possibly 40s, just Google it. But now he's been cut from the Monday breakfast show after this, and there's been some consequences.
Oh, isn't this a scandal, Rita? I mean, seriously, can you get away with saying that, though, that people should be in their prime younger? You know, it's remarkable. But I think...
Well, you can if it's Nikki Haley, because she's a Republican woman. So typically all the rules are out. But he was dumb enough to say it in front of his 2 female co-hosts, who, again, according to his Google definition, probably aren't in their prime anymore.
No, it wasn't a smart move, but this will have a lot to give, this story, for sure.
Sophie Elsworth, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Rita.